My mother is a witch, a true, honest-to-goodness witch. She isn't evil and she isn't merciful. She knows exactly where and how she can meddle when it comes to the order of things, and where and how she cannot. I wasn't blessed with the same wisdom. Every October was the same. On the first few days, she'd make small trips to get ingredients. The trips would become longer and longer as I got older, so her partners wouldn't be troubled to both take care of the house and watch me. Sometimes my biological dad would come fetch me, always horrified to have his daughter grow up in a polyamorous home, but not horrified enough to request my guardianship. As he got himself a new wife and started a brand new family like neither I nor my mother existed, I saw him less and less. Every October was the same. Mom sat us down and started making the list of people who wronged us. I don't like how he's been treating Bella just because he's getting married again. It's fine to move on, but I won't let him make my baby girl feel invisible, I heard her telling her partners. The three of them did everything together, in a large wooden kitchen full of natural sunlight. Mom, Ted, and Bea loved to cook, so the other rooms were small to create lots of space for that. Every October was the same. After she had all the ingredients, we'd start gathering pieces of people, mostly hair and nails. She called them the regents. Make sure we only get regents from people who actually wronged us, she'd advise. Bea and Ted were younger than her and didn't have children of their own, so Mom was obviously the head of the family. Witches don't harm people first. We all nodded with serious faces. Being a child, I could barely understand the weight of such responsibility, so I wasn't allowed to add anything to my list, just make suggestions. That year, a few weeks later, my dad had his firstborn, as he'd proudly boast. Like I was never there. His son was a boy who was born from a marriage his parents approved of, not a fleeting relationship with some hippie. My half-brother wasn't born white like his parents. It caused a lot of friction in my father's perfect marriage, and his wife ended up agreeing to a DNA test. The baby was theirs. Her father isn't as white as he thinks, my mother remarked to Tad and Bea. There's a lot of mixed blood in there, much to his displeasure. This is the best kind of retribution because he'll have to rethink his racist points of view. Bea, who was Latino, looked particularly pleased. You tell him, Maddie, she cheered. The next year was the first time I was allowed to make my own list for the Retribution soup. I was 11 and I had two people in mind. Jessica, my longtime bully, and the school's principal, who I heard making a very sexist remark to my favorite teacher, bringing her to tears. The second one didn't directly wrong me, but I wanted to be the kind of person who stands up for people I care about. The Retribution soup was a success that year. Over the holiday break, Jessica went to another country with her family, and she ended up getting such a bad case of lice that she had to shave her head and lose the long hair she was so proud of. The principal was fired only a week later because he was caught robbing the school money. My teacher was so relieved. I felt so proud of myself for bringing bad people to justice. After that year, the puberty truck hit me, making me a whole different person, a person I'm not proud of now that I've come to my senses. Maybe I was always bad inside. Maybe being rejected by my biological dad hurt me more than I realized. Maybe my mother should have raised me differently. I don't know. I'll never know. At first, I became obsessed with a boy. I wanted so bad to do something. Anything to have him notice me, to have him love me back. My chest burned for him every time I caught a glimpse of him from across the classroom. Aiden. To me, his name sounded like the language of angels. It's pathetic. I had barely talked to the guy before, and still I was sure I loved him more than I could love anything. But it was all I wanted and all I felt and all I knew. We were soulmates. That feeling was everything. It ached and numbed all at once, and my sole reason for existing became knowing that the next day maybe he'd look at me. Is every first love like that? If it is, what a scary experience. For 3 years I had no luck, Every day my existence felt emptier and my heart felt heavier. I tried to busy myself with other things, but he was so handsome and I was nothing special. He'd never look at me, and that knowledge was so disheartening I might as well end my useless life. I filled a dozen notebooks with poetry and descriptions of his face. How I wanted to sit next to him, drawing figure eights on his chest. How I wanted him to be mine and mine only. I begged my mother for a spell to bind him, but she refused. You can't mess with someone's free will, and even if you could, I don't know such spell. Liar, liar, why won't you help me, liar? What's the point of being a witch if you don't get what you want? I couldn't only wish for it strongly, stronger than I ever wanted anything. Then, in a matter of few weeks, everything changed for the better. We ended up doing a group project together. He noticed me. He seemed to finally like me. My friends encouraged me to ask him out, and I did. Just like that, we miraculously started dating. I was so happy. I'd do anything he'd ask me, anything. My mother rarely tried to stop me from doing something, knowing very well that she only grew up to be someone she could be proud of because of a solid foundation of mistakes. That's the kind of woman she wanted me to be, but she asked me to take it easy. I hated her for that, especially after how unhelpful she was. She had no idea how deeply I loved him, so much more than I loved her. Maybe she was envious. No one had ever loved someone else the way I loved him. I was sure of it. I rebelled against my queer, polyamorous mother by being the most obnoxious opposite of her. I was hateful against everyone who was like her, queer and carefree, calling them immoral and wicked. I fiercely believed that cheating was the worst possible crime someone could commit. I was obsessed with fidelity, including my own. I ditched all of my friends. I stopped wearing clothes that showed my skin, and I even refused to go to the doctor. No one could see me, talk to me and touch me, no one other than my boyfriend, who never asked for any of it. I barely slept, afraid to be unavailable in case he needed me in the middle of the night. I couldn't stand the thought of failing him. To me, he was the most perfect being, and it was my job, no, my mission, to tend to his every need, even the ones he didn't know he had yet. He was just a 17-year-old boy and pleasing him would be easy enough. But I felt I was worthless unless I gave him more than everything I had. I became most of all bitter, jealous and insane. We had been together for only 6 months. 6 heavenly months because I got what I wanted, but 6 awful months because I was so scared of losing him or doing anything wrong when I discovered that my boyfriend had another girl. Needless to say, I lost my mind. My rage was such that I thought I was going to murder her. However, to him, I pretended to know nothing, because I could never bear to lose him. I'd forgive his sin, I just wouldn't forgive hers. It wasn't hard to find out her identity, and then her address. Again, I thought I was going to stab her 100 times to death, but somehow I was able to collect myself. I just snuck in and grabbed some of her hair to put in the Retribution soup. Nothing happened to her. Turns out that Aiden had been with her before he was with me. I was the mistress. She did nothing wrong. And you know what happens when you try to meddle with reality and karma and there's nothing to atone for? Things become dire for you. The moment we partook of the Retribution soup last year, my body started rotting. It was barely noticeable at first. My feet smelled awfully. My toes were swollen and blackened and ugly. But after a few days it became clear that something horrible was happening to me. Something that I completely deserved. Now I have blisters full of pus all over my skin, and I'm so lucky to have any skin left to feel pain. My feet are gone, and my 2 legs are reduced to nothing more than 2 burned down twigs. I'm suffering so much, but I don't want to die. I'm a coward who thinks she deserved a second chance at life. Too twisted to live, but too afraid to die, clinging desperately to the limbo, but the limbo hurts like hell. My mother had sent Bia and Tad to get her some herbs. They got some of the things she needed, but not all of them, and the cauldron has been boiling for days. waiting for the rest of the ingredients, waiting for something to save me. The two of them will help her through everything like always, but they are physically unable to get close to me anymore. I'm repulsive and I smell like putrid flesh. No one but her, this fair and cautious witch, will stand to be beside me. Why don't you write about what you're going through, darling? You've always been good with words, she suggested, so that's what I've been doing. It's not like there's a lot I can do anyway, and, considering everything, I'm grateful that I still have my hands. Today, her partners finally found everything they needed for the ritual to try saving me. They are all cooking and chanting. I can hear them from my bedroom. I'll end your suffering, baby girl. She didn't say anything more, but I know what she means. As a witch, when you need something, you have to offer so much more than you'll get. So I think she's planning on sacrificing her life to get my legs back. I found this diary entry in my calligraphy. The date is 2009. It was the year I was sent to live with a relative after, I was told, having an accident that resulted in partial memory loss. I have some memories of my childhood, but my teens are a haze. I vaguely remember a guy named Aiden from high school, but I had no idea I was this obsessed with him. I was never close to my mother my whole adult life, but this year I had no choice but returning to her home after losing my job. My mother is still alive and well. Her partners Bia and Ted too. They seem happy to have me around. I'm terrified of what I just read. Are those things true, or was I just writing fiction? Everything feels so real, and deep in my heart I seem to remember all these horrifying things actually happening to me. The burning feelings, the pain, the smell of rot. Bia is great with suggestion, so maybe she ended up erasing these painful memories for my sake. And if that's true, I have no idea whose legs I have now, but they always seemed oddly masculine to me.